Pete Carroll gets Geno Smith. Raiders return to greatness. You know, I've been thinking about that for a minute or two now, and Pete Carroll, what he's done since he's just been there. Folks, Pete Carroll's got an amazing coaching staff. Amazing coaching staff, and being able to pull Geno Smith and get him to come on in, okay, coming out of Seattle. This Raider team is going to be the quickest turnaround that we have ever seen in Raider Nation. They're stacked from head to toe with all the coaches, all positions are covered, and they're ready to just play football with the players that want to play Raider football. But if you look at the report card so far, having Bart Bowers and getting Geno to come on in and lead the Raiders, you can't argue with that, and gives you also time that you can go ahead and draft a quarterback and get him ready within the time frame that it needs to be. But the Raiders are going to play Raider football. The game has changed a little bit because now the whole organization is getting rebuilt. The organization is getting a foundation, and the organization is going to head into the draft to draft players who actually meet the standard of the Raiders. Now, you're going to see a building process, but it won't take as long as you think because Pete Carroll understands what it takes to win in the National Football League. Pete Carroll understands the culture, and Pete Carroll has players that want to come in and coaches that are sending players that want to come play for the Raiders. I believe that the Raiders can get back really quickly. What would be a successful season for the Raiders this year? If the Raiders go 8-8, that's success, right? You got to look at it. If the Raiders come back and go 10-7, that's success. You go any higher than that, I mean, you got to look at it and say the Raiders are going to be in this battle. Now, here's what I do know. Pete Carroll knows how to beat Jim Harbaugh, right? I mean, he's not going to run around and be afraid of the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh because he's been whipping Jim Harbaugh for years, right? SC, he was up there. He got him at Stanford. You get him with the 49ers. You got Seattle. So that's not going to really afraid. I mean, you know, Pete Carroll's not going to be afraid of Kansas City Chiefs, right? Because there's nothing the Kansas City Chiefs can do that Pete Carroll hasn't seen, or the coaching staff. So much experience on the Raiders now. So the Raiders have got a good foundation. They got a good foot. They got a plan going into the draft. They got a plan. They want certain players in free agency, which is going to build the Raiders back to what the Raiders belong, and that's a model of excellence. Now, when you look at Bart Bowers, I'll tell you, that's a handful of a tight end right there, and that is a big-time gamer, which takes us back to Dave Casper, right? You got the ghost to the post. Okay, you go Todd Christensen. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the Raiders have always been able to utilize that tight end position. And now you're getting some returning players, the word around the league, that like to come on back and contribute. Because when you get to an organization where you get the thrill of playing football, Raider football, and being in an organization where everybody knows we come to work, it eliminates a lot of confusion, and everybody knows their schedule, where they're supposed to be. Players know what off-season workouts, and the Raiders will be walking into OTAs soon with just nothing but fire coming under the dragon, right? And that's Pete Carroll. So the game for the Raiders is getting better. I like what the Raiders are doing. I think that the defensive line is going to get better. The offensive line, they're going to show that up. The Raiders want to have a running game and a ball control offense, right? But they're going to build up on the defensive side to put a lot of emphasis there so that they can play ball control football. It's a new day. The draft will say a lot about the Raiders. The free agent signings, as they continue, will say a lot. But the Raiders have started out with one thing for sure, and that's they've received a quarterback that can lead the organization. Now it's just a brick by brick, step by step by step of rebuilding the organization back to who the Raiders are and finding players that want to be Raiders, not necessarily free agents that want the money, but the people who want to wear the silver and black is the most important that you have, and I think Mark Davis understands that. Tom Brady does, okay, and Pete Carroll definitely does because he's from the Bay, and everybody that's around there understands the culture, and you got Marshawn Lynch. So the Raiders are going to be the Raiders, a model of excellence. They'll come back, and they'll play good Raider football in Las Vegas. They understand they've fallen, but they're not looking to lose a foundation. They're looking to rebuild it and let it be under the Raider Nation, which is the most loyal fan base in the NFL. They understand the Kansas City Chiefs are still a rival, in Kansas City, while they may have much success today, they understand they were beaten last year, and the Raiders have known they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's going to come down to, there's one other, the Denver Broncos, and Sean Payton and Pete Carroll, they know each other well enough that they'll meet head-to-head, and they'll see what happens. Pete, they got some good acquisitions on the defense in Denver, picking them up from the 49ers. So it's going to be a different game. The AFC West is just as powerful, but the Raider Nation and the Raiders, Oakland Raiders, Los Angeles Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, it's all the same. The Raiders will be the Raiders, and Raider Nation is the most loyal fan base in the NFL. You stay tuned. Pete Carroll sitting at the helm. I think he's going to do a hell of a job. I think the Raiders, the foundation is getting rebuilt and returning to the moment of excellence